أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي لا تؤاخذني مما يقولون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون واجعلني خيرا مما يظنون أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome one more time to the House of Dua, the channel from which you learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about His creation, about His message, about His messenger, and of course, about His chosen religion known as Al-Islam. The channel from which you learn how to succeed and be happy in the world we live today, and how to succeed and be happy on the day of accountability. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, today we are coming to you with a note of warning against one of the attitudes we have, which is working against us. This is a serious reminder to those of us who are engaged in this to check themselves against what we are about to say. But before then, you know we are all slaves of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us so much that He will want us to keep our relationship with Him in a perfect manner. He loves us so much that He would not like to see us overtaken by the shaitan. But from time to time, many of us make mistakes. Many of us make mistakes that work against ourselves and against our success and happiness in life. And sometimes we don't know we are doing so. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded that we should not only believe in Him, but we should also have good character. Good character is of immeasurable importance when it comes to our relationship with Allah. That's why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always address the issue of belief and character together. You hardly can find a place in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about those who believe alone. He always talk about those, alladhina amanu wa amilu salih, those who believe and do righteousness. That righteousness translates into being a person of good character. And the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam was asked, what are the two qualities that we need for those who will enter Jannah? And he replied, Taqwa Allah wa husnul khulq. Believing in Allah and being conscious of Him all the time, and also having the best of character. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, there's no doubt that all of us are believers in Allah, but how many of us have good character? How many of us have good character defined in terms of the way we relate with other creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, beginning from our homes, the way we interact with the entire planet created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How many of us can vouchsafe that we have good character? The issue we are bringing to you today has to do with character, and we want all of us to take it seriously. Many a times we disagree. And we disagree, as a result of that, we find ourselves engaged in arguments. And the goal of every meaningful argument is to find a common ground, is to make sure that the truth prevails and the right thing is done. But unfortunately, in the process of argument, we have three categories of people. There are those who come into that argument sincerely, equipped with the knowledge and equipped with the right guidance, prepared to lead the way to doing that which is right. There are others who come into such situation with limited knowledge, of course, but they come with the desire to learn and, if possible, to change their own position when the truth is established. But there are others who come into the situation with little or no knowledge and not prepared to accept the truth or to go by the right guidance. This last part of it is dangerous. Sometimes such people continue to argue blindly, using their own position, which is not backed by knowledge or by any form of expertise. They want those with knowledge to go by their way. They want to make sure that their position prevails, and if not, they go about arrogant, using foul language, accusing others of cheating, and creating dissension and problem in the society. This happens in the family. There are spouses who argue endlessly, not backed by knowledge or reason, but backed by ego and the desire to make sure he or she is in control. This inevitably leads to breakup of the marriage in many cases. We have seen communities divided as a result of blind argument by those who are leading the communities. Nations have gone to war as a result of blind argument, arguments not based on facts or knowledge, not based on the desire to achieve goodness. Instead, such arguments are made to create problems and dissension and to cause confusion in the society. People engage in this, they do what we call arguing blindly. Today, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, we are here to speak about the issue of arguing blindly. Those who have argued blindly in the past, they have lost. Do you want yourself to be counted among them? Therefore, yes, there's nothing wrong in disagreeing. There's nothing wrong in engaging in one form of argument or the other. But the goal must be to bring about the truth. And the argument must be based on facts and sound knowledge if we must achieve that truth and achieve our desired goal. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, in the world we live today, there are people who argue blindly. And in countries where this is very prevalent, good leadership is very hard to come by, because more often than not, those who argue blindly, and that blind argument is based on selfish motives, they more often than not win over, and they get more supporters. And when such people prevail, you bet that nation will be heading into the wrong direction. This is why it's an issue that all of us need to be worried about. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, the Quran is the starting point of everything we want to do. There is guidance in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that as human beings, we are bound to disagree. If it were the wish of Allah, He would have created mankind to be one. But He has created us in such a way that difference of opinion is never lost in the gathering of men and women. And dear brothers, my dear sisters, today we want to remind ourselves of the need for us to avoid arguing blindly. Before you argue and you want your position to be accepted, you have to equip yourself with knowledge. You have to equip yourself with facts, and you have to be ready to yield to those who have the facts. We shall come into that very soon. But what did Allah command us to do if we find ourselves in a situation of argument? First of all, let us remember that to argue blindly is not acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Al-Hajj, which is chapter 22 of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدًى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ فَلْيَأْتِ فِيهِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا خِزْيٌ وَنُذِيقُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ عَذَابَ الْحَرِيقِ. Among mankind are those who argue blindly without knowledge, without revelation, without guidance, and they go about arrogantly raising their shoulders, and they make the arguments with desire to mislead people. Such people will have double punishment. In this world, they will be humiliated. Their end will not be good. and in the Akhirah, they will meet most severe punishment. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by this verse, has reminded us of a group of people who argue blindly. As I said, argument is very common among mankind, in politics especially, and in other aspects of human endeavor, and particularly also on matters relating to religion. Those who have no knowledge about the revelations, they go about trying to mislead others with few quotations here and there memorized, trying to mislead people to that which is wrong, instead of rooting their own presentation on sound knowledge based on the Quran and the Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Surah Ghafir, which is chapter 40 of the Quran, Allah says, Allazina yujadiluna fi ayati Allah bighairi sultani atahum kabura makatan inda Allahi wa inda allazina amanu. Those who argue about the revelations of Allah, about the signs of Allah, when there is no authority to support their own point of view, either from the Quran or from the Hadith, such people, their attitude is hated in the sight of Allah, and is also hated in the sight of those who believe. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, it cannot be anything but that. Therefore, we have to be careful when we are confronted with any issue in which we have to discuss with another person in order to establish the right way to go. As I said, there is nothing wrong in differing, and there is nothing wrong in trying to discuss our differences and to come to a common ground so that we can move forward. But what is wrong is for somebody to come into such process of discussion with blind-sightedness to the truth. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, arrogance is not in not having money or having too much of it. Arrogant is better al-haqqo or gamtu nas. Arrogance is in resisting and refuting truth when you see the truth, and also despising people who are trying to lead you into that truth using your mouth. That's what arrogance is all about. And those who are so arrogant, Allah says through the mouth of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, Lan yadkhul al-jannah man kana fil qalbihi mithqala habbatin min khardalin min kibr. No one will enter Jannah, one in whose heart there is a grain of arrogance as small as an atom. That person will not enter Jannah. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, yes, those who fail to put their point of view across in any process of discussion, more often than not, they walk away arrogantly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Munafiqun, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالَوْا يَسْتَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ لَوَّوْا رُءُوسَهُمْ وَرَأَيْتَهُمْ يَصُدُّونَ وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. There are people, when you call on them, these are munafiqun, who are often engaged in presenting double faces. Today they are good, tomorrow you see them in a different way. When you call them to say, you know what, come over, let the messenger pray for you, come to the way of Allah, come to the Quran, you see them walk away insolently with arrogance, as if nothing will happen to them. Feeling already, sometimes the arrogance leads them to a situation where they plot evil against those who are trying to lead them to the right way. But such evil they plot to go against no one except themselves. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, to argue blindly is a big disease that all of us need to cure ourselves of. We are saying this because the world of today is being misguided and misled, being dominated by those who argue blindly among our leaders, among those who call themselves political pundits, analysts. They call themselves. They are the first to jump to an issue and you think they have the knowledge. They are actually armchair philosophers. They have never gone to the position of the issue involved. Still, they have their opinion, and they want people to accept that opinion as the final opinion. And we have people like that too amongst us who call themselves scholars of the deen. They memorize few verses and few hadith like this, and they want the whole world to hear them out. We have such people in the family who have nothing to offer by way of knowledge, but then their voice is loudest. They argue blindly. And dear brothers, my dear sisters, as I said, there's nothing wrong in expressing your opinion or engaging in an argument. Let's go to some arguments in the Quran that are full of lessons that we can learn from. Let's consider the case of the angels of Allah. He told them, I'm going to appoint a man to oversee the planet. They told Allah, are you going to assign a man to the planet when we are here worshiping you, purifying you? Aren't we enough for you? That was a form of argument they were making. But Allah told them, I know what you don't know. Knowledge. Knowledge comes in there. I know what you don't know. And dear brothers, my dear sisters, many a time there are people who know more than us. We need to yield to such people. When the angels realized that they were dealing with the one who knew more than them, they told Allah, Subhanak la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Glory be to you, Ya Allah. We have no knowledge except by that which you have taught us. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, what of the case of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Tried to guide his father to the straight way, the father and his people. He tried to guide them. Ibrahim told his father, Kadija ani minani elem, malem yatik fatabini ahadika surata sawiya. Oh, my dear dad, knowledge about Allah has come to me, which didn't come to you. Therefore, follow me, I will lead you to the straight path. But the father continued to argue with Ibrahim over this issue and told Ibrahim, Fajuruni, leave me alone, otherwise I will cause you to be stoned to death. Ibrahim had no choice but to leave his father alone. At the end of the day, who lost? It was his father that lost. Same thing with the people of Ibrahim. The people continue to argue with Ibrahim, and Ibrahim asked them, are you arguing with me over the matter concerning Allah, for which I have better knowledge than you? They didn't listen. They didn't listen to Ibrahim alayhi salam. At the end of the day, who lost? They lost. Let's come to Sulaiman alayhi salam. Here we learn that if you must argue at all, nowadays, it's not based on how much you can speak and what kind of energy and power you have. We're talking of knowledge. Argument based on sound knowledge. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. In Surah Naml, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed to us the conversation between Sulaiman and his jinns. Sulaiman had sent to Bilqis alayhi salam to join Islam, otherwise something will happen. But while expecting Bilqis to turn over, he told his jinns, who of you was going to bring her palace to me here? For her to know that I'm in charge. Listen to what Ifrit min jinn replied. The leader of the jinns at that time, known as Ifrit, Anati kabi kabla tokuma mi makamik wa inni alayhi lakawiyu amin. He told Sulaiman alayhi salam, I will bring the palace of Bilqis to you here before you stand up and get into your palace. And I have the power to do so. And everybody knows me for my power. But is that the time to use power, physical energy? You think that was what was required? But there was one person there also, a member of the jinns, who had superior knowledge to the knowledge that Ifrit was having. He told Suleiman alayhi salam, how will you get up from your seat and get inside before I bring the throne of Bilqis alayhi salam? I will go and bring this throne before you twinkle your eye. Suleiman realized that this is somebody with superior knowledge. And he gave him permission to do so. And he went ahead and do so. Within the twinkle of an eye, the palace of Bilqis alayhi salam was in front of Suleiman. Suleiman, when he saw that, he realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endowed him with enormous power, and this was a test from Allah to see how grateful he will be. He concluded, whoever shows gratitude to Allah, that's the one who will benefit, because Allah will do more for that person. But whoever shows ingratitude, then of course Allah has nothing to do with that person. Allah is independent of that person. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, these are situations from which we are expected to learn some lessons. Do you want to continue to argue blindly? Then of course you will suffer like the people of Ibrahim alayhi salam who suffered, and the people of Ad who suffered. Those ones were carried away by blind argument, thinking that they have the power. They asked themselves, Man ashaddu minna quwwa, who is more powerful than us today in today's world? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the question. Surah Fusilat. Awalam yarau anna Allah allazi khalaqahum huwa ashaddu minhum quwwa. Are they crazy? Don't they know that Allah who created them in the first instance knows more than them and has more power than them? That's how arrogance can carry people too far, my dear brothers, my dear sisters. That's why we are warning you about it. Now, what did Allah tell the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam? The Surah Al-Ankabut. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet, the Prophet was warned by Allah, don't engage yourself in blind argument. Whenever you want to dispute with those to whom the other revelation had been sent, who are accusing you every day, do so with sound knowledge. Do so with the Quran. And even in the case of those who do wrong, confront them with the knowledge of the Quran. That's where your victory is. Allah told the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Those who are contending with you over matters relating to Allah, over matters relating to the day of judgment, over the deen, invite them to the way of Allah with the best of wisdom and the best of knowledge based on the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Contend with them with that which is better. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like those who argue blindly. Let's learn our lessons and avoid doing that. Whenever you have opportunity to contend with people, bring argument based on sound knowledge. Let's go back to what happened in our recent times. A few years ago, we have the coronavirus, and we are still having it now. But during that period, do you know how many people were misled into self-destruction by those who were arguing blindly over what they had no knowledge about? Those who were foolish among us, astaghfirullah, they fell for such cheap arguments, consuming that which would destroy them. A lot of people died as a result of misapplication of dirty stuff. Yes, that's what blind argument can lead to. There were so many philosophers at that time about coronavirus, preferring different solutions to the problem. At the end of the day, they all ended up in vain. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, let us learn our lesson. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the straight path. Arguing blindly is a disease. We need to cure ourselves of it so that we can save our families from embarrassment, so that we can save our nations and the whole world from unnecessary embarrassment. How do we do that? Whenever you want to argue, come with a sound knowledge. Be ready to yield to the one with higher knowledge. Be ready to accept the truth And even you who is coming with the sound knowledge, be ready to present your case in the most cordial manner. Because you may have a good case, but if you present it very badly, you lose the case. In some other cases, there are people with bad cases, but they present them in a very good manner, they win the case. Therefore, our manner of approach is also very important. There are many examples of that in the Quran that we shall discuss next time, inshallah. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, to come into an argument with mind preset for divisions or unwillingness to compromise and accept the truth, that is dangerous. And we need to cure ourselves of that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take shaitan away from our lives, take our life far away from shaitan. Subhanallah wa bihamdik, subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Alhamdulillah.